Okay, welcome to week 11. I have our home page for the week pulled up with the to-do list at the top. As you can see, no quizzes this week, just 3 modules of material. 2 of them are familiar from last week, and we have a new one, Unit 2, Mod 4 Proofs. Let's actually scroll down to the calendar of modules to see where we're going. Okay, so we are in week 11. We've got 3 modules we're working on. Next week, we're going to move to probability. We'll do essentially 2 weeks of proofs, probability, and fallacies, and then we will move on to causation, and you'll have your logic quiz number 3, fall break. Finally, we'll sort of finish up essentially Unit 3 is scientific reasoning or inductive arguments, and we'll have a fallacies quiz, and then you'll be ready to study for the final exam. So we're getting close to the end here. My goal is to get the logic quiz 3 practice quiz, the fallacies quiz practice quiz, and the final exam practice version available sometime during week 11. And hopefully also the next 2 modules. I'd like to have all of the materials in the calendar in place. Okay, so back to the top here. I made a special video for completing homework 11. In that video, I give you some advice for the module in general, which we're going to work on for a number of weeks, and then I go through and complete the homework. So if you are wanting some guidance while you complete this homework, especially if you have a sort of like fear of math or if you've been uncomfortable with the logic material so far, you might want to watch the video and do the homework at the same time. In this welcome video, I'm going to take a look at statistics and informal fallacies, give some general advice here. Okay, let's go to the statistics materials first. Last week, we focused on just introducing a lot of new terminology, especially if you haven't seen the statistical reasoning kind of material before. So we got used to the terminology and the method for reconstructing statistical generalizations as a strong argument. So in your homework for week 10, you were asked to reconstruct an argument in standard form. Let's actually take a quick look at that argument. I'm going to go to modules, week 10, homework 10, where we did passage analysis and argument reconstruction. And I'm going to skip down to the last question. Okay, so we're given a passage, and if we're just using the skills we developed in Unit 1, we could reconstruct this passage like this. Okay, so there's a conclusion indicator word, so it's clear that this last bit is the conclusion, and the first bit is going to be the reasons to support the conclusion, the premises. So we've got some background information here. Target surveyed more than 1 million of its app users, asking them this question, Target or Walmart. They've got 250,000 users who respond, 90% report preferring Target to Walmart. So it's really just like one premise. Sort of combining some of the details from the setup to the actual information we're giving to get the claim that 90% of 250,000 survey respondents report preferring Target to Walmart. Therefore, 90% of all U.S. shoppers prefer Target to Walmart. So if we just reconstruct what we're given, this is the sort of, call it the superficial argument. This is what we are explicitly told. But the point of this unit is to, 1, recognize when we are getting a statistical generalization, and be able to reconstruct the argument, filling in the implicit premises we would need in order to make this a strong argument. By doing that, we can potentially identify weaknesses in the argument. If we know that the support relationships are strong, we only need to look at the individual premises in order to evaluate the argument. So what I recommend doing is, think up here, I provided the argument form, just in general. This is like a template you can use to fill in statistical arguments. If you've got this template for a strong argument and you can fit in the information you're given, you can figure out the implicit bits you would need to complete the argument. So you could generally just copy and paste that. But for this particular question, I sort of started filling in the template for you. So your best bet is to start by copying and pasting and filling in the bits that are left for you to fill in. Okay, and of course, if you've already finished this, you have the sample answer available. I'm going to go back to the statistics passage, module. My point is just that what we started with was terminology, being able to identify a statistical generalization when you see it, and be able to reconstruct the reasoning as a strong inductive argument. The additional task for this week is to also be able to evaluate the argument. Again, the reason why we're reconstructing the whole thing in standard form using the template provided in this module is so that we know it's a strong argument if these premises are true, including the assumptions about what we're measuring actually indicating the thing we want to know about, and about our sample actually being representative of the general population we want to know about. So if the premises are true, then the conclusion is probably true. Once we have an argument set up this way, we only need to look at the premises. Are the premises true? And so the new material here for week 11 says to focus on pages 9 through 16 of the text. You should absolutely read the text for this material. It's essential. And then do the homework, where the new material in pages 9 through 16 is all about evaluating statistical generalizations, figuring out if the premises are actually true. And you'll look for common errors in setting up statistical arguments. Okay, so the last thing I want to highlight in this video is that your homework for this week will be fairly short. So homework 11 on statistics is pretty short. There's only one short answer question where you're asked to evaluate the argument. But you're going to want to be more familiar than that, especially if you do the homework and you don't find that one easy, because it is a simpler example. So if you do not find that homework exercise easy, but in general, this is for everybody, you should do practice problems beyond the homework. The homework is the bare minimum you should do, just as sort of a checkpoint. I don't have the ability to create quantity and grade a quantity of these kinds of questions. So there is a set of practice exercises here with complete solutions. So be trying at least a couple of arguments so that you can set this kind of thing up on your own without guidance. That's your sort of target skill level. Okay, so that completes my advice and quick overview of Unit 3, Mod 1. So let's move to the fallacies module for this week. Again, all of these go to the same place. It doesn't matter which one you click on. So we're back to the same materials as last week. We'll read what to focus on for week 11. So for week 11, read part 2 of the text. If we scroll down, right, there's 2 parts of the text. One was the sort of big picture, get into actually evaluating some arguments and identifying fallacies, problems with those arguments. And now part 2 is something that we'll be working with until week 14 to 15. And I've called this week Memorization Week. So you're going to look at part 2, and I'll give a quick overview of this text in a moment here. And it says here that your goal is to get the gist and look at simple examples of different fallacies. Feel free to skim. This is a text you'll probably want to refer to in more length. Make your first pass at it just skimming, be as quick, efficient, effective as you can in getting through the text. Do look at it, but be fast. So the difference is this is your first bit of the text was introducing you to the full process with just 1 or 2 fallacies to focus on. The next bit of the text is organized around presenting the 8 fallacies we'll be working with. And you'll see repetitive information. Some of the stuff is taken from here. The point is just so in this bit of the text, you have all the information about every one of the fallacies we're focusing on in one place. So there's a bit just in general to introductory bit, but it goes right into equivocation, which you've already seen, ad populum, which you've already seen, and this bit of the text is exactly the same as in part 1, ad hominem, which you've already seen, and then the 5 that you haven't yet seen. So for this bit of the text, be able to define each of the fallacies, to be able to recognize their sort of generic argument form, the structure this kind of fallacy usually has, and pay attention to these simple examples of these fallacies. Your homework for this week will just be focusing on definitions, argument forms, and the simple examples which I've drawn directly from the text. Okay, in future weeks, so weeks 12 through 14, this is when we're going to start practicing passage analysis, short answer questions. And just like with the biases, we'll go through them and kind of focus. For week 12, we'll keep the ones we started with in week 10, and we're going to add straw person. So it'll be just these 4, and we'll practice passage analysis. Then we'll add in 2 more, and then 2 more. So that's the big plan. Okay, and that is it for week 11. I look forward to hearing from you in your week 11 check-in.